All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the seventh and final installment of Rabbi SB Gershuny's class, Making the Days of Awe Truly Awesome. The days of awe are technically behind us, but we will still make them awesome, as we will learn today. So, without further ado, happy to present Rabbi SB.
Thank you so much, Ben. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for bearing with us for the slight time change. Glad you made it. Um, I know folks are very much still arriving, but really the first question that's uppermost in my mind, of course, is how was your Yom Kippur? Um, and I guess the second part of that question is how do you feel that reading this book and being in this class together impacted your experience of Yom Kippur as it went yesterday? Um, so for now, I think just folks, if you want to type a little something into the chat to anything that feels relevant, you want to log about your experience, would love to read. And it's completely legitimate to say, yes, it just made me realize my unpreparedness in an even deeper way. I'm gonna just be quiet for a minute to give people a chance to think and to write before I start reading out anything people put in. So folks just arriving, welcome, and we're just putting into the chat anything we want to log about how our Yom Kippur was this year, and any changes we may have noticed we think are the result of having been studying this book, or just how it was. So I'll just share a selection that's coming through. Um, People are saying whether they felt unprepared and just keeping on going, or a bit more prepared. A number of folks saying that it felt more joyful, a more joyous experience than in the past, that their fasting was maybe easier, maybe more meaningful. And people felt tapped into the wider community of Jews around the world, praying and being in the same in the same in the same frame together, undertaking the same task together. Um, someone says she felt a bit more tolerant. It was great. Powerful to be back in person for the first time since COVID. That alone was powerful. I'm glad to see people saying that they did feel that the reading enhanced their experience and made them able to be more mindful of the practices, of the meaning, of the prayers, to keep focus on the personal work of teshuvah. Someone says she felt more relaxed than usual because she'd been able to do some preparation in this class. The music was more touching, felt uplifted. Today I feel renewed and energized. I understood better why the vidui, the confession, was repeated so many times. Jenny, who's not Jewish, says she didn't fast, but she stayed home to try her hand at making something new. That's great. A good day to be in the zone. Mm. Uh, Someone says that she was prepared by the discussion by the clergy before the afternoon services to be able to create a flow into the crescendo before the gates closed. Yeah, yeah. Now, I'm glad to hear from so many people that they experienced some additional aspect of meaning or connection during this year's High Holy Day services. That's wonderful. It's really wonderful. I'm really glad. One thing that really was clear to me yesterday was how the energy does begin to shift in the afternoon, and something that was brought into the liturgy by the rabbi, who's I was also helping to lead, but not at my own synagogue. I wasn't the person mostly in charge. The person mostly in charge was Rabbi Mark Soloway, and he brought a wonderful contemporary vidui written by Rabbi Avi Weiss, and it's a positive vidui. Ahavnu, berachnu, gadalnu, dibarnu yofi. We have loved, we have blessed, we have grown, we have spoken well, and it continues in this way. I was really very aware of how in the afternoon, after we've done the heavy lifting of Kol Nidre and the morning services, that the energy really does begin to shift towards a more joyful feeling. Certainly that was my experience yesterday, and that I really do think it's helpful to us, and it's something I'm going to suggest in the future where I'm leading, and to anyone else, to also do an account of our right doing, and to use that as part of our confession. That the focus only on what we've done wrong might be a little counterproductive, or at least it's only part of the picture. It's only part of the picture. We've also done many wonderful things, and it's worth accounting those too. So I asked folks if they wanted to bring any sections of this book that we haven't touched on in the class together, but that particularly moved you. So I'm not assuming that everybody is showing up with a page reference or a quotation for us, but I figured a few people probably would like to bring an idea that they think is worth discussing, or that they were particularly touched by. So I'd like to invite that now. If you have a page number or a particular couple of sentences, to put those into the chat, because this is, obviously it's a 270 something page book, and it's absolutely jam-packed with amazing ideas and stories. You'll notice in this class we didn't touch very much on many of the wonderful anecdotes that Rabbi Lew brings to illustrate the deep points that he's making. But I'm wondering, just to know for you, and also for the future, quite possible that I'll teach this book again, what were the pieces that we didn't touch on that really stood out to you? Okay, so I'll ask Barbara. Folks can put into the chat if they wish, but also if you'd like to share verbally, I'll ask you to unmute Barbara. And Sharon, was that your hand, or that's just your mouse thing? Okay, Barbara. I think you're still muted.
Okay, I couldn't get to unmute. There was a section in here that he talked about a couple times, but it's on page 128, and I seem to find myself going back to this, and I could really get a picture in my head. It's about the inner healing requires self-acceptance. When all we see and feel is negativity, we must search within ourselves for an aspect of goodness. What he called, meaning Rebbe Nachman, a white dot within the black, and then find another and another until these dots form musical notes. Our task, he said, is to find enough white notes to form a melody that will define our core and affirm our fundamental goodness. I just absolutely love that section. I could visualize that. But not even just finding a white dot within ourselves, but finding a white dot with somebody who maybe annoys us or we don't really like them a whole lot. And I've tried to do this with this woman who sits next to me in our choir. I find her very annoying because she's always talking when she shouldn't, and she doesn't have a whole lot to say. And so I just tried to find a white dot. And then since I've done that, I've actually found a few more little white dots. And through this course, she's not annoying me as much as she was. So I just love this one little passage. I think it will stay with me for a long time, is to find those white dots in everybody.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Barbara. That's really wonderful. Really wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that it was successful in helping to shift your attitude. And I'll also say that passage came to me yesterday when I was looking out at the Kahal, and I wonder for Kantamark or anybody else who was leading services. This passage is also one of the ways that we try to draw together the melody of all of the people who have joined together for prayer. It's a wonderful meditation to sort of string together the notes and the harmonies of all of the different individuals in the room. It's a wonderful kavanah for that. Beth, please.
Two things. First, I just loved what Barbara just said. And the funny thing about it is, the more you look at people who bug you with white dots on them, the more white dotted they become of their own accord. It's a fantastic, amazing phenomenon that occurs, that if you lighten up about somebody, they will somehow reduce whatever it is they're doing that is so aggravating. It's just a funny phenomenon. What I wanted to call attention to is the last chapter dealing with Sukkot. And I have kind of a funny relationship with Sukkot, in that I am fortunate to live in a really beautiful kind of glass house that blurs the distinction between inside and outside. And when I do have a sukkah, and I put it up, and it's, you know, the garden variety aluminum poles and greenish canvas prefab stuff you can get from sukkah.com. And it's so bland compared to my house, no matter what I put up on it. And it also really blocks my view of all the woods and the nature that surround my house. And in a way, my sukkah is kind of an eyesore, and it's the opposite of what it's supposed to be. And so it just kind of bugs me. But anyway, what Rabbi Lew says about on page 266, the idea of a house that gives us security and shelter and haven from the storm, no house can really offer this. I disagree with him. There is no house in the world that is going to let us stay healthy and live forever. Our houses don't do that for us. But they certainly can be a place of refuge and repose and contemplation, and be very sheltering and very secure while we yet live. And I'm not sure exactly where he was going with this, but I just do find my house very secure indeed, contrary to what he's saying here. Dibarti.
Shamati, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I think that's a good prompt. Let's turn to that, the passages about Sukkot. Hang on, let me see where I can share. Hang on, I put the source, the link to the source sheet is in the chat, so you can copy and paste that. And let me just find the screen to share. 1 second. Great. There we go. So in this coming to Sukkot, we're actually also returning, as those of you who've been with us since the beginning might remember, to what Rabbi Lew talks about at the very beginning of the book, about the image of Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, being of the house being pulled down and our being exposed to the elements, and the suddenly waking us up to the reality of our vulnerability. And then he comes full circle to say, you know, at the very end of this process, we put up this insubstantial house, although in Beth's case, it's more substantial than her rest of the year house, and it creates a sort of paradox. But this house, which is not a house, he talks about as also being a way to experience a certain joy, a certain it's almost like an exaltation in the vulnerability. So I wonder, will someone read for us, please? For whatever reason, it's not showing us with the source numbers, which is not so helpful. Let's see. Oh no, don't do that. Sorry. Okay, Countermark, you can see where I'm talking about, where it says the sukkah, an insubstantial house, the idea of a house.
I can see that. I'm actually cooking breakfast for my pianist and Rebbe Soul, who are coming over to play more Levitic music, but I wanted to read this for us.
Okay, fantastic. Multitask.
The gate, the idea of a house. The gate clangs shut. The great horn sounds one last time. You feel curious.
Oh, sorry, I just muted you by accident, trying to mute me. Sorry, Mark, carry on.
Not a problem. I'm unmuted now. Some days later, you find yourself building a house, a curious house, an incomplete house, a house that suggests the idea of a house without actually being one. This house has no roof. There are a few twigs and branches on top, but you can see the stars and feel the wind through them. And the walls of this house don't go all the way around either. Yet as you sit in this house, eating the bounty of the earth, you feel a deep sense of security and joy. Here is this mere idea of a house. You finally feel as if you're home. The journey is over. So now we sit flush with the world in a house that calls attention to the fact that it gives us no shelter. It's not really a house. It's the interrupted ideas of a house, a parody of a house. According to Jewish law, this booth we must dwell in for 7 days. 7 days, where'd it go? Oh, need only have closed walls on 2.5 sides. And we must be able to see the stars through the organic materials, the leaves and the branches that constitute its roof. This is not a house. It's the bare outline of a house. It's like the architectural feature called the broken pediment, the notch in the roof line of the facade of a house, which leaves the mind to complete the line, and thus implants the idea of a line in the mind even more forcefully than an unbroken line would. So it is that the sukkah, with its broken lines, its open roof, its walls that don't quite surround us, calls the idea of the house to mind more forcefully than a house itself might do. And it exposes the idea of house as an illusion. The idea of a house is that it gives us security, shelter, haven from the storm. But no house can really offer us this. No building of wood and stone can ever afford us protection from the disorder that is always lurking around us. No shell we put between us and the world can ever really keep us secure from it. And we know this. That's a typo.
Correct. Thanks for spotting my typo. Thank you so much.
Yours?
Yeah, it's me. It's me typing things out. So
Yeah,
what do you think? We know that Beth disagrees. She says a house is a metaphor the body is a house. Yes, we know it's going to fail us eventually, but it still affords us security for now, and the same is true of our literal houses. What do you think of Rabbi Lew's contention that in the vulnerability of the half house of the sukkah, we feel a freedom and a joy and a security that is not possible while we're in our more contained, more solid, not just ideas of houses the rest of the year? Does that seem true to you? Iris says, we feel home, for we are at home and at one with God when we dwell in the sukkah. You're welcome to type or raise your hand if you'd like to speak to the group. Oh, Freddie. Okay, I can see you. Do use the little hand icon if you can, because it will pop you to the front of my screen. I'll be able to see you. But Freddie, I think if you just unmute.
There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah, you're great.
I was thinking while listening to that the holidays, Rosh Hashanah, especially the days of awe, bring us home to ourselves, but also home in a Jewish way. And a big piece of the Jewish tradition that I love is that there's not an outside God figure, master, creating everything. That as humans, we create holiness in the world. And the structure of Judaism or the Jewish community helps us to do that. And so, in a way, the Torah and the Halacha are not complete, just as the Sukkah is not complete, unless we embody it and bring it to life. So that's, and even in a home, your home, Beth, is secure and strong for you because you have brought yourself into that home. You've chosen it, you've put your pictures on the wall, you have the warmth of your family. And so it's not just the structure that makes it secure for you. Although I'm sure we're all thankful that we have rainproof, snowproof structures, unlike many people in the world. But it's not the structure, but it's how we complete it together, through community, through tradition, through our actions, through reflection, all those things that create holiness and security in the world. And my other quick thought is that I'm in my 60s, and a cousin on each side of my family has lost a child in the past few years, one to cancer and one to the opioid epidemic. And it just is such a lesson, such a hard lesson in how security is never, as you were saying, Rabbi, that we never know, that life is uncertain and has a lot of stuff to deal with, joyful and hard. Those are my thoughts.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. I think one of the things that you're pointing to is how the sukkah leaves space for one another and space for community, without which we're hard pressed to feel whole. Although I also see someone in the chat saying that the way it puts us more in touch with the elements and the stars can also make us feel grounded and connected and less isolated, which I certainly think is true. And I appreciate all the people pointing out that precisely the vulnerability of the sukkah and its reminder of the vulnerability of the Israelites in the wilderness is also paradoxically a reinforcement of our endurance and survival, that even with all this vulnerability, we still have made it thus far. Our tradition has survived, and our ancestors have, their DNA has come down at least as far as us. So I see that is a very, very powerful point that's being made. I wonder if anybody else wants to share any of their thoughts on the Sukkah. Can you guys hear the background noise from behind me? Should I go shut that door, or is it not bothering you? Doesn't seem like you can hear it. Okay, great. Deborah says security is not just physical. And I think that's really one of the points that Rabbi Lew is most making, that in being willing and able to feel our vulnerability and to feel pain and struggle and suffering, we actually paradoxically find a gateway to joy and to wholeness. Martha, please.
Yeah, I have kind of a tangential question. We are both seniors. We're putting up our sukkah, and we're always have to find someone who's allowed to do the climbing, because as seniors, we're not allowed to do the climbing. In halacha, is there anything, granted that that at the time to have reached our age, they would have had 6,000 great grandchildren helping them. Is there anything to cover a lower sukkah?
Well, I mean,
we are at least 6 feet tall.
well, I'm sure you know that the first most important principle is pikuach nefesh. You shouldn't do anything that's going to endanger your life.
Our firm doctor ordered us not to build the sukkah.
Right. So I do wonder if there are some people who might be able to come help you.
Oh, yes. No, what I'm just asking, is there anything about a certain height, and maybe it'll be a height we can reach?
You can have a teeny sukkah. You can actually have a sukkah that's just big enough to fit your head and shoulders into. You can have like a shoebox sukkah, as long as it fits other requirements. So there's no minimum height. You can have one you have to crawl into.
Okay. All right, we can lower the roof on ours. Okay, thank you.
Good luck finding people to help.
Oh, it's easy. Our block is Black Hat.
Okay, great. Yeah, you won't have a problem.
Okay.
Shikaya, have a good holiday. That's wonderful to hear. So let's turn to what Rabbi Lew has to say about joy and this paradoxical power of joy. And as you might know, the Sukkot is the holiday where we're most commanded to feel joy, which is a strange thing, because how can one be commanded to feel joy? And yet that is the instruction for this time. Yeah, let's read the second source here, pages 270 and 271. It's source 8 on the source sheet. Who'd like to read for us? If there's anyone whose voice we haven't heard yet, it's always nice to hear a variety. Cheryl.
Hi, thank you. Emptiness, vulnerability, and joy. Once a year, after several months of reconnecting with the emptiness at the core of form, we leave the formal world behind. We sit in a house that is only the idea of a house that calls attention to the illusory nature of all houses. And then there is joy in this, a joy born of the realization that nothing can protect us. Nothing can save us from death, so it's no use defending ourselves. We may as well give up, and there is a wonderful release in this giving up. Tomorrow morning, I will walk around the synagogue celebrating both our power and our impotence. Let me move that chat so I can see it. Our miraculous capacity to hear and nurture life, and our utter dependence on God for it. And I will feel a deep sense of joy as I do, because this is the truth of my life. This is the cusp I actually stand on at every moment of my life. Every moment of my life, I'm inescapably hammered into place by everything that has ever happened since the creation of the universe. And every moment I'm free to act in a way that will alter the course of that great flow of being forever. And here at the core of our life, here at its paradoxical center, There is a mysterious, inexplicable, senseless joy. It's beautiful.
Thank you. So, Cheryl, anybody else? What do you think of this idea? Is there a joy born of the realization that nothing can protect us, that nothing can save us from death? So it's no use defending ourselves. Do you agree that giving up gives a wonderful release? Natalie, please.
I do believe that it does. I find in my current situation that I feel other than that, I need to have things in order. I do feel a sense of what is important right now is to be surrounded with joy. And my synagogue's rabbi is making a sukkah in his backyard and has invited the congregation to come for an open house. So and they're doing that on Sunday. And so I'm actually not going to go to synagogue on Monday. I'm going to surround myself with joy and I'm going to go ride my horse. So I find that I'm choosing quite purposefully the things that I will and will not do with my time. I'm very purposeful about I wanted to have a Jewish family, so being involved in synagogue was a very important thing. Taking this class was an important thing. Learning to read and speak Hebrew, an important thing. So I think that the joy is, if you don't find it, you'll wake up one day and discover that you didn't spend enough time seeking it out. So that's my take on it. I think it's important that you realize that it's a really important aspect of your life, especially when you get into your 60s, which I am. It's just important to spend time on surrounding yourself with joy.
Yes, and you were so courageous to share with us last time that you are yourself staring death in the face, and so these questions of meaning and focus become that much more powerfully important. Thank you for sharing that realization with us about the importance of prioritizing joy in whatever ways and places we find it. Sunshine, please.
I had a similar thing to say. I've had a couple of times where I was very close to death, and in the last few years. So the amount of joy that I've experienced just from going through that and being completely unafraid of death as a result has been really, really wonderful. And I always, for a very long time before I was in this accident that sent me down this hole, I was really interested in death. I was working with elderly people who were dying, and I don't know, I just found it like this fascinating sort of area. So I guess maybe I was preparing myself without realizing it. But yeah, I feel like there's an incredible joy just in these moments of recognizing what he said, we're just on this precipice all the time. And if we're not aware of it, then we miss out on how beautiful it is. And also, when you lose your fear of death, it's like you lose all this resistance that was kind of holding you down. And that's very joyous.
Oh, thank you for saying that. That's so wonderful. When you lose your fear of death, you lose a lot of resistance that's been holding you down. Yeah, wow. Someone said in the chat that that Sukkot creates a freedom which can release the geyser of joy. So I love that similar image of, as we let go, something else can sort of well up and fill that space. And yes, it was Rabbi Nachman who said it's a mitzvah to be joyful all the time. And he also says, Asur lehit ye'esh, it is forbidden, it's prohibited to despair or to give up. It is forbidden to give up. Sunshine, I think let's look at we didn't have time in a previous class to come to the wonderful thing, he mentions a couple of times Ernst Becker and the denial of death, but I think this might be a very, very good time to read that. So it's source number 13. I wonder who would like to share for us, to read for us. Somebody raise your little yellow hand, or whatever color it is, if you'd like to read. Please, Kohenet.
Denying the denial of death. Earlier, I mentioned the denial of death by the philosopher Ernest Becker, and Becker's observation that we human beings seem to be the only creatures afflicted with the mysterious capacity to understand that we are going to die, and that is precisely this fact that seems to call us to the world, to our life's work, and to God. We try to compensate for this dread intelligence by constructing what Becker calls affirmation systems. We see the void and it terrifies us. It looks to us like utter negation. So we try to set up something in life that affirms our existence. Against death, which we see as the ultimate failure, we offer up success. Against death, which we see as the ultimate emptiness, we offer up the acquisition of objects. Against death, which we see as the end of all feeling, we offer up the pursuit of pleasure. Against death, which we see as the final stillness, we offer up a ceaseless rage of activity. Against death, which we see as the ultimate impotence, we offer up the glorification of our own power.
Right. So I think he's saying this all in the context of Yom Kippur, when we let go of some of those distractions and ways in which we dress ourselves up and occupy our attention, so that we can come back to our awareness of our mortality, and, as he says, let this call us to the world and to our life's work and to God. Yeah, it's a big question. It's a big topic, death, and whether actually confronting it or doing the miniature confrontations of Yom Kippur and this teshuvah cycle can help to bring us to our work in the world. I'm curious if anybody wants to comment on any of that material. To me, that seems very, very deep. I'll also I'll just comment to Maura Judy, who asks, if it was in this class that we were talking about the rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto, I think you might mean the Piaseczna Rebbe, who said we are commanded to rejoice on Purim, even the ghetto, and the same on Sukkot. I don't think it was in this class, but I think you may be talking about, he's sometimes called the Esh Kodesh, or the Piaseczna Rebbe, another really incredible spiritual teacher. Kohenet Eliza, please. Eliza or Eliza?
Sorry, there we go. It's Eliza.
Thank you.
I guess, this just brings me to the understanding a little deeper of our society, in that we are always, seeking ways to avoid our fears and our the reality of facing death by doing all of these other activities, shopping or anything that kind of is a distraction from our limited time on this earth. And that we just do ourselves a disservice when we don't face the fact that each day is a gift, and how do we honor that every single day, rather than try and distract ourselves from that fact. Dibarti.
Shamati. Yeah, thank you so much. The great wisdom of just being present with what actually is going on. I didn't want to send people into breakout rooms while folks were still arriving for the class, but I think now might be a good time. Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope that was enough time for everyone to get to share a little bit at any rate. I do think it is always more meaningful in any educational experience if everybody gets a chance to speak. And unfortunately, we're not in a position to be able to hear from everybody, but in the whole group. But I think it's wonderful for everyone to have the opportunity to speak and be witnessed in your intention, as we were talking about last time. Once you've said it aloud, it gains a certain reality. You're being held to account by the witness. Before we went to the groups, someone mentioned the sense of relief that comes at the end of the High Holy Days. I think at the end of Yom Kippur, I think that's probably felt by most people. It's certainly felt by those of us who are in leadership of the High Holy Days. There's a very visceral sense of wow, okay, it's another year till we have to amp it to that level again. It's certainly the most intense period of the year for your Jewish clergy. And certainly Rabbi Lew is talking about that, I think, from his own perspective. Lisa says she's found a copy online of the Rabbi Weiss's positive vidui that I was mentioning before. She's put the link in the chat here. Yesterday I was thinking, it's a PDF, but you can find it through this website. To come back to this topic, and the topic of finding the positive notes in people, and the white dots, and how this actually mysteriously does transform them, or helps them to transform into being a much less irritating version of themselves. I want to make a particular mention of a beloved friend and mentor of mine, Dr. Andrea Jacobson. She was also a Kohenet, a Hebrew priestess, and her husband Philip is here with us today. Kohenet Andrea passed away last Yom Kippur, and I was thinking of her very much yesterday, of course. And one of the things I was thinking about in light of this issue of positive confession was how she was so skilled in being able to, I was her rabbi for a number of years. She was very skilled in being able to give me critique. And the thing that made her so skilled at being able to give critique was that she always embedded it within a sense of my goodness. It was always clear to me that she felt that I was a good person and a person of qualities and strengths, and that anything that I was doing that was not so skillful or well aligned was an anomaly, or was falling short of the person that I really am. And that amazing perspective actually was incredibly effective at helping me receive the critique and be able to change. And I was thinking of that for obvious reasons as we were going through the litanies of confession yesterday, that in telling ourselves that we're good people that sometimes fall short, we may actually be empowering ourselves to change a great deal better than by telling ourselves that we're bad people that always mess things up. Yeah, Prana agrees. So I'm going to read for you Rabbi Avi Weiss's, I'll read it in English, the whole of his positive confession. You can find the link in the chat as well, but I think it's very, you'll hear the Hebrew, which we're not going to read, kind of directly echoes the Ashamnu Bagadnu. But he says, we have loved, we have blessed, we have grown, we have spoken positively. We have raised up, we have shown compassion, we've acted enthusiastically. We've been empathic, we've cultivated truth, we have given good advice. We have respected, we have learned, we have forgiven, we have comforted, we've been creative, we have been awoken, we have been spiritual activists, we have been just, we have longed for the earth, we have been merciful, we have given full effort, we have supported, we have contributed, we have repaired. I would like to make a move for this always to be part of the High Holidays liturgy. I think it's immensely empowering and encouraging. The chat is open. The chat is open if anyone wants to share any thoughts or wants to raise their hand. As we come, I see you, Frana. We're going to hear a couple more voices, a couple more thoughts. And then I'm going to bring us home with a piece of the Ne'ilah liturgy, because I think we're still in that afterglow of the end of the Days of Awe. And then I'm going to read the very closing words of this chapter. And then it was suggested that we should say a Kaddish, which I think is a wonderful idea. I'm sure there are folks here saying Kaddish, and on Yom Kippur it's traditional also to say Kaddish for all those who don't have anyone to say Kaddish for them. So that's how we sanctify in the face of the thing that is really real and for which we're always unprepared. But first, Frana, I think you have to unmute.
I wanted to add one thing to the positive vidui, and that is when we do this one, we hit our chests. But when you do a positive vidui, do this. Or develop your own gesture, positive gesture.
Yes, thank you, Frana. Frana suggesting that instead of beating our breasts, we should gently rub our chests, which someone suggested at a service I was at many years ago. And at first I was very resistant to it. I was like, oh, what is this renewal hippie nonsense? But then I have found that doing it has quite a different effect from the old self-flagellation, and possibly a more helpful one. So thank you for that reminder too. I would love to also, before we play a little music and begin to come in for a landing for this class, I would love to also please invite everyone to chime in with suggestions about what worked and what could work better for any future iteration of this class. I do believe My Jewish Learning is going to send you a survey. You can also just, well, I'll put my email address in here too for anyone who wants to get in touch with me directly. I'm just putting that into the chat, and you can send feedback to me, or you can send it to Ben at jta.org. Yes, Andrea is very greatly missed. Absolutely. And Philip, I'm so glad you could join us today. So the final source on the sheet is the liturgy for this piece of music, which is from the Ne'ilah service. It's the only time in the year that we say this prayer. Patach lanu sha'ar, ve'et nilat sha'ar kifana hayom. Open for us the gates of prayer at the time of the closing of the gate, for the day has declined. I think this is a wonderful setting. It's also, I'm aware, the only we have had a lot of music being by men and being sung by men in this class, and I want to help to redress that balance. This is Pharaoh's Daughter, another wonderful contemporary Jewish artist, and I'll play this music right now. That's not it. This is it.
Rachem
I'm going to conclude with reading a little bit more from this final chapter, and then we'll rise for a Kaddish. Anyone who is saying Kaddish will lead us. The stars are shining on my head. The stars are shining on the top of my head. The wind is in my hair. A few drops of rain are falling into my soup, but the soup is still warm. I'm sitting in a sukkah, a booth with branches draped across the top, which I have erected in my backyard. A deep joy is seeping out from the core of my being and filling me, body and soul. It began as a kind of lightness. I felt it as soon as the shofar was sounded to signal the end of Yom Kippur. There were 3 stars in the sky then. I felt all the weight, all the heaviness of the day, all the death and the judgment and the yearning, all the soulful thrashing and beating of breasts falling away all at once, suddenly gone. I felt light and clean. The next day I went into my yard with a hammer and started to build my sukkah. Now I am drinking soup in my sukkah, a booth not quite surrounded by walls, with a roof that must admit starlight, and a deep joy is welling up inside me, a curious, naked joy. During the days of awe, I was stripped of everything, all my hope, all the illusions to which I had been clinging. Now I feel clean and light and full of joy. And these are the very final words. This is the overwhelming, senseless gratitude we feel when we are finally fully awake. And it makes no difference what we awaken to, whether it is to pain or to pleasure, to life or to death. It is all of a piece, all the ground of a deep joy when fully inhabited, when wholly attended to. Nor does it make any difference that we will inevitably sleep again, that we will drift back into our house or one remarkably like it, without even realizing that we have. It makes no difference that there will once again be walls between us and the rest of the world. In the fullness of time, these walls will also fall down, and a great horn will sound, calling us to wakefulness again. So I'd like to invite all whose custom it is to stand for Kaddish, please to stand. And if you're saying Kaddish, please unmute yourself. I think you can unmute yourself without my help. Is that correct?
It's not correct, but
Okay.
we can allow people who...
Yes, please do, Ben. Please do. And then you can unmute yourself. And I don't know if you have it handy, Ben, if you could put up the text of Kaddish. Is that not so handy?
I can do it if you give me 10 seconds.
I can give you 10 seconds.
All right, hold on just 1 second.
Sorry, I didn't give you a heads up about this. And anyone else who's saying Kaddish for someone presently, if you want to put their name into the chat, we'll give a 30-second window for that.
Folks can unmute yourselves now if you'd like.
Yes, and you can please unmute yourself. And thank you everybody for the encouraging messages. Okay. So let's say together.
Gotta slow down.
Amen.
Say shalom b'mromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'yakol Yisrael b'mru amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Yeshua koach, everybody. It was really wonderful for me to have your companionship in preparing for the days of awe this year. And I'm wishing everybody here and everybody you're connected to a wonderful, wonderful year full of such fulfillment, deep learning, and that all of your intentions, your kavanah that you've come to through this course or elsewise, that all of that you should be able to fulfill, make good on, and the Holy One of Blessing should strengthen and prosper all of the works of your hands. Ken Yihiratzon. Amen. And have a wonderful, wonderful Sukkot. I hope you feel that joy in the midst of vulnerability, and also that you have good weather.
Thank you.
Hope to see you
Thank you,
again
thank you.
soon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much,
Thank you,
Ben.
Rabbi. Thank you for this gift.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Sarah Bracha.
Yeah.
You're so welcome. You're welcome. You should thank my mom. She's here too. Without which I'm yeah. Thank you, Esther. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Shana Tova, everybody. Chag Sameach.
Bye to everybody.
Tova.
You have a wonderful daughter.
That's what I think.
You did good.
Philip, great to see you. Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Very, very special. Thank you all.
Shana Tova.
Thank you.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Bye bye, everybody. Shana Tova.
Chag Sameach. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.